Hi, Macedonia here, and we just rolled off the ferry in Sumbawa, and this is the first place I've ever been where pony traps are still a legit form of transportation. There was one just then, and just before I turned the camera on, I passed about 4 in, half a minute on my way from the airport, from the seaport. Look, there's more! It's for real! We are in the land of pony trap transportation. There you go. And they're not for tourists. It's actually a way of getting around. So yeah, it's about 3 in the afternoon, 3:30 maybe. And this is Sape. I have been led to believe that Sape is not super exciting as a place to hang out. So I'm sort of thinking I'm going to head towards Bima, which should take me over some mountains, a bit of a windy road, and yeah, hopefully I'll find a spot to rest my head this evening in Bima. Labuan Bajo, which is really the only really touristy place in Flores, and I hated it. I got in really late last night. I got from the way from Rutang. I got caught in a big storm, which I think I talked about earlier, and but yeah, it sort of put me behind schedule a bit. And by the time I got into Labuan Bajo last night, it had been dark for an hour, which was really suboptimal. It's kind of a pity too, because that last descent down the mountains into Labuan Bajo, I think, is some really scenic riding. What is this guy doing? But I did see some of it in the light of this pink sunset, which was really quite gorgeous, so I enjoyed that. But I think I might have missed a bit of it too, so that's a pity. But that's alright, these things happen. Yeah, so I got into Labuan Bajo really late and I was exhausted and I couldn't find a place to stay where the bike would be safe, and I actually went to one place, the first time this has ever happened, they said to me, do you have a booking? And I was like, no. I mean, pretty much everywhere else I've ever been in Flores, you can't book. Or, like, one of them, Lena House, was on booking.com, but the only way I knew about that was because people kept showing up, being like, oh, you have my booking on booking.com. And the people at Lena House were like, what's booking.com? We didn't get your booking. So yeah, but I rocked up to this other place in Labuan Bajo, which was supposed to be cheap, and maybe it was, but they didn't have any beds, so it must have been really good. And yeah, so I had to keep looking, and then I found this other place, and it was really dingy, and they didn't have anywhere I could lock up the bike, and I just didn't like it. So then I went and looked at another place, and they were trying to tell me that the bike would be safe, and that they had 24-hour security, and they're going to park it on the front veranda. But they're going to park it on the front veranda in the middle of like the major tourist backpacker bar, drunken person walking past strip. And I just wasn't sold on it. And they're like, we have 24-hour security, and I'm thinking, but they were really, they were really trying hard to get my business, and I thought, well, you would say that to get me to stay here. They're like, it's fine, no one will steal your stuff. Again, easy for them to say. So I wasn't buying it. Eventually I agreed to stay at this place across the road on the proviso that they locked the bike inside their shop when they closed. But that then meant that I had to stay up until 11 o'clock and make sure they actually did stick it in the shop for me. And yeah, and then I couldn't sleep, and I was worried about my bike, and I came down. They hadn't put it in the shop, they're all still out there. I don't know what hour it was, maybe midnight, maybe 1 a.m. I insisted they put it in the shop, and they said okay, and they did, which was good. And then I went upstairs to the dorm room to sleep, but they had the air conditioning on, right, and you couldn't turn it down, and it was on like full Antarctic mode. I was on the top bunk under this Antarctic air conditioning on full ball. It was just, you know, blowing out on me, and I couldn't sleep. I was so cold. I had like 3 blankets, and I was so cold I could not sleep. So I went and slept on the floor in like the breakfast area because it was too cold in the bedroom. And yeah, I had a really shitty night's sleep, unsurprisingly. Not because I slept on the floor, but because I suspect I didn't start sleeping on the floor. I was so tired at the end of that day, you know, I could have just laid down on the floor anywhere in a car park and I would have slept just fine. But the Antarctic aircon did not do it for me at all. And yeah, and I just got a bad feeling off the place. You know, they're all trying to get me to go on boat trips and pay them lots of money to go and see the Komodo dragons and all that stuff. And I'm not paying, you know, the Australian equivalent of $70. Well, the equivalent of Australian $70 to go and see Komodo dragons. Because it's just too much money for me to spend on something like that. And I don't actually like gawping at poor animals. You know, a lot of the time, like, I hate zoos, and I know the Komodo dragons are not in the zoo, but still, I don't like gawping at animals. I like for animals to be left alone, to be animals. And I'm like, well, I'm sure they are cool, but I'm sure they'll be super cool if I leave them alone too. Yeah, so it was only like a 6-hour ferry ride, but there were a couple of extra hours of stuffing around because I didn't know what time the ferry went. And I got into Labuan Bajo and my mobile internet data had run out the night before. So I couldn't really check when the ferry went, and I got in really late. It was a bit too late to be really asking questions properly. This looks good. Don't throw shit on my head, kids. So I was kind of guessing when the ferry went, so I was down there at 7 o'clock, and I don't actually know if it went at 9 or 9:30, but it was sometime around there. But I was there at the right time, as it turned out. Onions! Onions everywhere.